trying to log on or mucking through products that didn't make sense. This is our opportunity for us to move into a breakout room. I want us to have a small, intimate conversation. Share what you've been experiencing. From that breakout room, we'll come back, and if you have something to say, you'll type the word hand in the chat, and Jeffrey will unmute you, and we'll have you share with the group. But what you take from this breakout session, please be willing to come back and share it in a group. So, Jeff, if you would get people assigned to a breakout room, usually about 3 to 4, I think might be good. We're going to spend 10 minutes. I'm going to drop by. I'll be like a bombing session for you, and just hop in and talk to people and listen to what you're saying.
So you have to turn off your screen.
And that was almost the exact same kind of thing. If you had read the memo at the time, how would that change the steps you took at the same time? Because I basically did what the memo said, and the memo was pretty good. I don't know if it was the same point that he took, I guess, I didn't see it yet. And the U.S. the wording that the U.S. would lose trillions of dollars and millions of lives. Well, we're not going to lose plenty of money, but I couldn't have done it any better because it was about the same time when I closed it down to the gym. Just last week, so you maintain confidence in it.
Well, I seem to be in a breakout room of one.
I think it's taking, because there were so many people, I think it's taking a longer time to get people into the breakout rooms. So let me go back to my thing. Oh, I see. Okay, cool. I'm gonna move you to a different room. So in the meantime, it makes more sense. Eric, can you hear me? I'm trying to unmute you, Eric, but
yes.
Oh, here we go.
I heard you. Yeah, thanks. Hi.
Kristen and Andy and Darlene, would you guys like to be I'm trying to see who else is still in the main room. Something happened where you guys did not get assigned breakout rooms. So we can kind of have our own conversation, or I can assign you to one of the breakout rooms already happening, I think.
I'm easy either way. It's all good.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Cool. Let me unmute Kristen. It's weird. It's not. Let's see. Unmute. Technology is great until it just doesn't work.
Yep. Then it kind of raises the anxiety level.
That's right. Andy and Kristen, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. How are you guys faring right now? Is life sort of coming into some kind of routine for you?
For me, a little. I mean, it's a little strange because I'm a caregiver, and the places that my wife normally goes are all closed. So it's interesting, a little stressful.
Yeah.
And for me, yes, I guess things are kind of coming into some focus, but I guess I'm partially here because we're headed to. I'm a singer in Chanticleer, and we're kind of thinking about how we can reach out to former students of ours to offer kind of individual tutorial stuff, which is a new world for us. So in some ways, we're kind of finding new routine, trying to adapt to things. In other ways, will be. Yeah, certainly this is not anything like the normal routine of performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm struggling because I've had to stop teaching a lot of my private voice students, although I teach piano, and that's working okay with technology, but the voice just has been very difficult for the same reasons as the choirs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also teach an after school choir, and we're going to set up something with Zoom, but it's really going to be difficult.
Wow.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Andy, how is Chanticleer sort of still planning for a season for the fall and sort of moving ahead sort of as normal as one can be in terms of future planning, or are you guys making adjustments to what next season will look like?
So far, I believe the attitude is to plan for the best in the fall. But for now, yeah, to adapt to what we can do digitally, and especially I'm quite interested in hearing about teaching voice and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's a time of figuring out how to do a lot on the computer.
Yeah. And Kristen, are you doing some voice teaching on Zoom and things?
So I've done some on Zoom. I'm teaching all my students by FaceTime or Zoom, but it was difficult. Because I'm teaching children age, and elementary, age, and so unless they're really good at what they're doing, they're having a hard time, because once the sound hits them from my piano or something, they're not hearing it really well, and then it's coming back really late to me as well. So accompanying a song or something is where we really run into problems. But
yeah, the delay is driving me crazy for trying to do anything.
For sure.
For those, For those of you, I see Lydia and Jennifer and Buddy and a few others just joined the meeting. There are about 120 people in this Zoom meeting, but we went into breakout rooms and we're coming back in a minute or two. So I did not go ahead and assign those of you who just came in a breakout room, because I think we'll all be coming back any minute. And Tesfa will be leading us in the conversation again in just another minute or two. But welcome to those of you who just joined.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Eric, are you, you said you were in caregiving mode. Are you finding a ability to balance sort of your teaching responsibilities with your home responsibilities as well?
I'm working that out. Yeah. I mean, you know, I initially got some information together from some of my colleagues, and, you know, I have a Google Classroom and kids are interacting with me, you know, through that. We had a meeting for the Kern High teachers a week ago Monday via Zoom, and we were talking about the challenges of trying to do anything large-scale choral because the lag times and that kind of thing. Because that was one of the questions I was kind of asking, and they're like, yeah, the technology's not, you know, well set up for that kind of an application. So I was interested when I saw this thing was going to be happening. I was like, okay, I want to tap into that. So, because those of us that have used Zoom, and I haven't done one with the kids yet, it's been more just collaborative talking, seeing how the kids are checking in, that kind of thing, as opposed to the singing thing, because it's pretty challenging to try to do that and be together in real time. So I'm hoping for some insights here, though.
Yeah, me too. It's just nice to connect with colleagues too.
Yes, it sure is.
The best part. Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. That's right.
Hey, Jeffrey Benson, do you know if there's going to be an ECHO conference this summer?
As of now, we are still moving ahead with an ECHO conference. We have a 90-day period window of time before we prior to the conference, before we have to lose any money. So the executive board has decided to wait until April 20th to make the final decision one way or the other. And we've delayed registration until late April, just because we want to wait and see what things are looking like for summer and what the governor is thinking post May. So to be announced around the 24th of April.
I'll be sad if it goes away.
Us too. We're really hoping that we can do it.
Right here.
Are you talking about
Right.
Yeah.
Me.
Tesfa, are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everyone, and it's gonna take just 1 second to unmute you, but we're ready. Okay, Tesfa, I think you are unmuted.
Hey, everybody. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to share in your breakout session. I heard some super interesting things. I would love for people, if you could put hands. Jeffrey is going to moderate the hands. If you would type that into the chat, and then we can get you unmuted. Might take a while because Jeffrey has to then search. I'm going to stop sharing so it's a little bit easier on him so he can do that. Anybody willing to share? Miss Pauls, are you willing to share anything? You know, one of the things we talked about in our breakout room was, thank you, Jessica raised hand. One of the things we talked about in our breakout room was actually the equity piece. Is when we really think about, hey, we want to do all of these incredible technological projects and incorporate this, that, and the other. And if our students don't have a Wi-Fi connection, or if our students don't have an iPad or a Chromebook or a MacBook, it's really hard to pull that kind of stuff off. So Ms. Pauls, would you be willing to hop in and share what your district did to accommodate that was really cost effective and allowed the students to still make music?
Tesfa, I'm not seeing her. I have Jessica Napolis unmuted right now. If Jessica wants to talk.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll just say that one of the things that we discussed in our breakout room, which is probably something I would assume other people are thinking about, is not everybody feels the same level of knowledge and expertise on the technical side of things. And so, of course, while the idea of really beautiful virtual choir with all the nice little tiles with all the even, beautiful pictures might be a lofty ideal for some, and maybe even an admirable one, sometimes it's also a little bit daunting for some teachers, right? And for some teachers who are thinking, boy, that's a lot of work. One of your students, Jeff, was in the breakout room saying how maybe he understands some of those software programs that allow that work on the back end. But for the average person, that's a little bit of daunting work to put together.
And I can hop in and tell you that is the absolute truth. Raise your hand if you find it to be frustrating to try to do all of this technology and stuff. It's hard. It's legit hard. Now, there are programs that can make it easier, obviously. But when you really think about the amount of post-production work that goes into it, that's a lot of extra work on your hands when you're already redefining the way that you teach. And so I understand that frustration. I think Stephen Caldwell at the University of Arkansas has voiced some of that frustration on the ACDA page recently. I don't know if you've seen that post. But I wanted to share Ms. Paul's. I found her because this is one way to incorporate technology that's cost effective. And I think everybody can pretty much get down. It's so old school. Do y'all remember back in the day when you would make those like mixtapes, like legit cassette tapes, where you would like record everything, and then all of a sudden the CD came out and you didn't have to wait and flip the cassette, those 2 45-minute sides, you can then burn the CD, and we used Nero, and it was like 48X, and everything got really fast. Well, I'm gonna open up the dialogue with Ms. Pauls. Ms. Pauls, would you be willing to share what you and your district came up with?
Sure. So a few years ago, we were trying to figure out how to reach all of the students in the choir at Munson Sultana School. We're a small community in California, and I was brainstorming. I looked online, and on Amazon, I found these small cubes. They're MP3 player cubes. And all you have to do is I record like a lesson for the students, and then I'm able to record playing the accompaniment part. I played their part. I give them an actual lesson. I record that, then I download it on my laptop, and then I take the flash drive, which costs about $2 per flash drive. I insert that, and I copy that about 50 times. So I have a bass flash drive, tenor flash drive, alto, and soprano. And then each student is given a MP3 player, which is about 10 to 15 bucks on Amazon, and the school district did pay for these. And the students check those out for the year, and they love it. They think it's so cool. My 5th graders who audition for my 6th or 8th grade choirs, they say, are we gonna get one of those when we're in choir? And they practice a lot, and it makes a world of difference when they come to class. So now, since I'm not with the students, I'm planning on continuing that by more flash drives, and then the students actually come to school to pick up all their homework packets, and they can also pick up a flash drive and continue their work at home.
Thank you for sharing it. Absolutely. It's crazy because that would, for somebody coming from the tech industry, working at Minnesota Public Radio, American Public Media, you would never think like, oh, you can just drop like one of these little cubes and it works. If you just load in your voice, speaking to those students, and it is low tech, but it still works. So I appreciate you sharing that. And that's the way.
Pauls, there's a question from the group also. Would you tell us the name of the cubes again?
It's a flash. Let me look it up for you.
Okay.
I'll look it up for
yeah,
you.
maybe
Okay.
send me in the chat what it is, and then I'll blast it out to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Mary Clementi, I think, had something to add.
Yeah. Hi, I was just sharing. Oh, am I on mute? Oh, I'm unmuted.
We hear you.
Okay, good. So I'm teaching in an independent school in Seattle. So we are well into week 5 here of remote teaching. And we've moved, the first phase was what they were calling asynchronous. Now we're in synchronous learning. So we're having rehearsals in Zoom sessions. And as was demonstrated, the audio was sort of totally lost cause. But one, I'm starting to move more, my focus is moving more towards building community and keeping kids connected to music as opposed to trying to recreate anything I would normally do in a choir setting. So two tricks that have helped with that is I still lead them through warm-ups and they're all on mute, but I do a lot of kinesthetics during my warm-ups. So they're able to, and I invite them to, as silly as it feels, to do their kinesthetic warm-ups on the Zoom, and then they see each other doing that. And that's been a nice way for them to feel connected to each other and still preserve a bit of that choir community, even in these weird circumstances. And then the other piece that's been a success, and it's totally optional for my students, but it's caught on, is to do a weekly karaoke contest. So we pick a theme. We drop the theme on Thursday afternoon. They have until Saturday to post something on. We do it all internally, and we're using Microsoft Teams, but you could easily do it with Google Drive or Canvas or anything to avoid putting stuff on YouTube with karaoke tracks. But then they are creating their own videos and working with other kids remotely to create something. And it really appeals to kids with a wide variety of tech abilities. So you have kids who just submit audio to kids who are using TikTok and doing green screens and all that kind of stuff, and voting for each other. And it's been and just sending each other like little, like, oh my God, that was awesome, smiley faces and all that stuff. And that's been a really good community building tool. And I think that's, as we now found out, this is through the end of the school year, that's going to be more my focus.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Mary.
And I think Darlene is next. Darlene, are you there? While we're waiting for Darlene, Keith Peterson, I unmuted you.
Thank you. I was just commenting on the virtual choir thing that we've all seen people do amazingly well, and it looks wonderful. And we have students say, let's do this. I had a former student do one of those. It was fantastic. 36 women from around the country. It was beautiful. And her husband hosted a how-to, and I decided I would probably not incorporate it into my own experience when he said that one video took 100 hours of work to do. And so I just say that to let everyone know that I don't think we all have to feel obligated to produce these things for our students, as wonderful as they are. He was a techie, he was a media person anyways, and if it took him 100 hours, I can imagine how long it would take me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I want to kind of touch on something that Mary brought up, the community part of it, is using the technology to build community. So instead of thinking that it has to be a virtual choir or it has to be some type of virtual music making experience, Tim Sharp the other day actually posted, I don't know if you saw on his Facebook, there's software that he is incorporating with his choir that allows the choir to sing along with the track, and it assesses their pitch and rhythm accuracy. And, you know, there's some people experimenting in that way. But the idea of this, and we'll get to this a little bit later, is that we have to still be relevant. We have to show that we are making an attempt to evolve and become a part of this digital and virtual landscape. And somehow, one of the things that I can say I've experimented with, and you can try this, is playing games. Like we've done this with some of the California choir directors already. There's a game called Quiplash. But there's so many different games. Obviously, Quiplash might not be the one for you, but there's so many different games that you can play and share your screen that your students can participate. We had a dance party to the Beethoven Choral Fantasy. We were going to sing that this year. So I went to like the last 3 minutes and we just had it blasting, and they saw my big behind moving around my basement and cats jumping around terrified. And it was fun. It was fun to be able to interact in that way, and they could see that, you know, we're in this with them, that we aren't necessarily just like, I'm the choir director and I hide behind my podium, but I'm somebody who is like, I want you to know I'm here for you. I'm here to brighten your day. I care about you. And just thinking about ways to incorporate technology in that way. But I want to ask some questions while we're still in this space, just for a few moments. Like, how many districts, or is there anybody from a district whose students don't have access to Wi-Fi? They don't have access to this type of technology. And if you would be willing to share, what is your district doing right now? If you would put your hand up, we're looking and seeing Christy had her hand up.
Go for it, Christy.
Hi. So yeah, before our district, you know, went on break, they gave us 2 days, and they said at the end of the second day, have a packet ready for the students so that if they don't have internet access or a computer or whatever, they could do work on their own. But the issue is like, so if they're handwriting it, like I gave probably 50% of the students a journal and like a pen and a packet so that they could take home and do it on their own. But if they're writing everything on their own, how are we receiving the work that they're doing? And for those of them that do have phones, I've just asked them to take a picture and send it to me. But for those of them who don't, they could possibly be doing all this work at home and we're still not receiving it. And the bigger issue is I'm not hearing from most of the students, as I'm sure a lot of you aren't, like Shannon and Janice and I were talking about that. The biggest issue to me is not that they're doing or not doing the work. It's that I haven't really heard from the majority of them about, are they okay or what are they doing? So that's just kind of, this digital virtual learning has been difficult, I think, for my school and a lot of our district as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. I'm wondering how many people have a Remind type of application with their choir programs where you can kind of get in contact that way. Would you be willing to share if the students have been responsive during this time using an app or like Remind or any other platform like that? Anybody willing to share? Tina?
I see Bruce. I'll find Tina in a second. Bruce, will you? I unmuted you.
So I've been relying mostly on Google Classroom because they get notified by email. I do send reminds out, but there's always those 1 or 2 people who never enrolled for it. So then you have to ask everybody else to please contact them and let them know. But I found that Classroom works really well because that's kind of their touchstone now that we're doing distance learning.
Yeah.
And I've been really concentrating on just creating music. So I'm using Soundtrap with my beginning and intermediate kids. And we're setting a Rumi poem with my advanced kids collaboratively. Everybody's writing a melody. And then we're going to go through, I'm going to compile them all, and we're going to pick it. And then the parts have to write their own part. Because at least we can create something as a group. But yeah, Google Classroom has been really good. They're used to it already.
Awesome.
Was it Tina Curtis who had her hand up?
Yes.
Great. Muted. And just a quick request, instead of actually putting your hand up, because I might miss it because there are 3 screens, if you can actually do the icon with a hand that then stays in the corner of your photo, I can find you more easily. It's hard if you put it into the chat, or if you just wave at me, I might miss it. So there's an actual icon that you can touch on your screen. Thank you, Tina.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the problems that I've been having, I've sent messages via Remind, and then the LA School District uses Schoology, as I think a lot of the other ones do too. And I can see that the students have logged on, and I can see that they've looked at the assignments that have been given, but they haven't done them. So I've sent messages to the kids, and there's been a few kids that have been honest and said, I was doing the hard work first, and then I was going to go to choir. Or I have to choose between doing this for math class and then doing that for, so those are some of the issues that are coming up as well.
Katie.
Regarding communication, it's been really challenging. Our district, we finished 2.5 weeks of online. Our district, thankfully, worked really hard to make sure all of the students had technology devices and hotspots. I think there's still some families in our district without, but I think all my students have internet now and a device. What I've been doing is this last week I piloted breaking up my choir students into sight singing groups of 4, and so we just do 20 minutes of sight singing, and they take turns doing like 2 measures singing at a time, and then we have class meetings so that there's that sense of community as well. Our district also uses Parent Square instead of Remind, and that has been really wonderful, but still I have half the kids who didn't participate in my Zoom, reaching out to them, just getting them used to Google Classroom. Even though I used it before, I didn't use it as regularly for my choir assignments. And so just having them click classwork tab at the top instead of their feed to find their assignments, it's been really challenging in that regard. I really like the ideas that everybody has shared, but yeah, there is definitely a grief for choral music because it's not choral music right now.
David Montoya and then Shannon.
Well, I've been using Remind for 2-3 years now, and I never expect the kids to respond because they don't. Someone will give a thumbs up, some will do things like that, but I know they're getting the messages, and they tell me they're getting the messages. Even my top leaders, they'll get the messages, but then they won't respond to it, and that's just kind of the mode that I think kids operate in now. They see something, they note it, and then they go on. And so most of my kids are on that Remind in all my classes. Even parents are on it, so that parents are also, if they want to be, they can be on it, and then they're getting those texts also. We use a lot of Google Classroom. I had never used it until the day before we went to break, and so I was scrambling to get all my kids on there. And I have found it just to be very, very effective at pushing out questions and getting things to everybody. The beautiful thing about our district is that they had gone one-to-one Chromebooks for about 3 years now. So everybody has one. Whether they all work properly is another thing. But through that, I'm able to say, okay, we're going to have optional meetings because, as Tesfa was saying, this is about community also. This is what we've lost. So every Tuesday, we have half-hour sessions. Optional if kids just want to check in, just so we can just hang out together a little bit and talk about what their frustrations are, talk about what their successes are. And I've been finding that that's really nice. Even if only a few kids sign in with me, I'm there for each class during their normal class time so that they can have a little bit of time at least once a week to interact with each other.
Shannon, and then Tesfa's going to take back over, and we'll save some time at the end, I think, for a couple of comments.
Okay, hi. Our district also was giving out Chromebooks and hotspots to people who needed it, which was great. The problem has been getting people to respond to that because we haven't had 100% response. I work in middle school in San Marcos, and our middle school is the biggest in our county with 1,800 kids. So we have 625 in the music program between band and choir. And so it's me and my partner, we both teach the music program together. And what we've decided to do is, in lieu of being able to play in an ensemble, which has been hard, we've been setting up flip grids so the kids can record themselves and then putting that together. We're both kind of techie with Final Cut Pro, so we can do that and at least have those for the kids to enjoy seeing their own performances and with their peers. And then we've also been working on rhythm and a little bit of music history, some stuff that we don't usually get time in the classroom to do. Maybe we can throw it in here and there as we're working on songs, but we've found we can go a little bit more in depth with that stuff and make it a little bit more interesting for them and then tie it back into the music. We've also set up a schedule where starting next week when we come back from spring break, we are mandated to teach from 8 to 11:30, something like that. But we're setting up sectionals from 11:30 to 2:30. And we have like a little schedule we've sent out to our kids. So it's just sign in, put yourself on mute and play along. We're going to be playing this or working on this or singing this. And again, it's just trying to keep that sense of community so we don't lose our programs. So the kids realize that, hey, we're still here. Come back next year. We're going to be here. We love you guys. We're here for you.
Thank you. So you're probably wondering why did we choose to allocate so much time to hearing what other people are doing? And it's because I am going to start sharing my screen again. I think that we are about to enter a new definition of normal. So
if back to normal means acting like there never was a coronavirus problem, I don't think that's going to happen until we do have a situation where you can completely protect the population. But when we say getting back to normal, we mean something very different from what we're going through right now.
So when we think about normal, hearing everybody talk about what they're doing, I think is one of the most important things we can do over the next few months. I don't want to sound alarmist, but there obviously is a possibility that we could be doing distance learning again. And one of the things that I think we can take advantage of right now is time. Is that for us to have meetings like this, organized by incredible people like the stakeholders at California Core Directors Association and other core directors associations around the country, but spending time and saying, let's hear from people in the trenches. You are the experts right now. All of us, as we've just learned, thinking about what Christy said, she had to give a packet. Like, we got some people giving packets and we got some people using Final Cut Pro. And so when we think about where we are together, I think the collective mind of choir directors and sharing in this space will allow us to develop best practice. One of the things that really excited me that Jeff did in the middle of this Zoom, he pressed the record button. And once he pressed that record button, I was sitting there thinking, you know what? I hope that they are distributing this online to everybody, because we're all in this together. And the reason I share that is because I think about our field, and I didn't realize this until I started doing some research. Show a thumbs up or a clap if you have heard of edX or Coursera. So back in 2012, edX or MOOC, basically massive online classes, came out, and there was a lot of stakeholders like Harvard, Yale, MIT, University of Michigan, University of North Texas. They joined this coalition of colleges and universities to develop this huge online curriculum. And right now, between edX and Coursera, there are over 6,700 online courses being taught. And here's a peer-reviewed quote from Philip Hunter. I'm going to share my screen with you again about edX. I know some people aren't actually watching, and that's why I'm choosing to read some of this stuff. So here is the quote. Digital learning methods are penetrating curricula, not just at universities, but across the whole spectrum of education from kindergarten upwards. As more universities explore the potential of online seminars, lectures, and lab courses, they face a set of new challenges, from technical problems to financing the development of high-quality educational material and devising strategies about how to efficiently interact with students. And that was from 2015. So obviously we got some work to do. This is 2020, and I don't know, I can't see the total number of directors, but Jeff, I'm assuming it looks like it's 96.
Yeah, and at one point we were up to 115.
Okay, so between the 115 people that joined here and hopefully in other states across the country, we can create a similar coalition. And maybe it's low tech. Maybe we figure out a way to have just a massive online course of Zoom choir directors where all 50 states come together and we get a chance to moderate breakout rooms and learn from each other. The reason why I think this is so important is because I do think the perfect storm is coming. Again, you might think I'm sounding alarmist. I'm not trying to sound alarmist, but the perfect storm is coming. We are likely across the country going to look at institutions facing budget shortfalls. I can tell you that my institution, St. Olaf, which I will own it. I work at the Disney World of schools. You know, we have a healthy endowment, and we're looking at a budget shortfall of about $7 million. Plus, because we refunded that to students, and we're trying to figure out a way to make that money up in other ways. But when I look at the horrifying media circulation coming from the media industry, thinking about raise your hands if you read the Seattle article about the choir meeting. It's a choir just a little bit south of Seattle, and they met, and so many people from that choir ended up catching the coronavirus and even had some deaths as well. And career fear. If I am a parent of a 9th grader and I'm saying to my freshman or my sophomore or my senior, and I'm saying, hey, this music thing, I don't think that's a good idea. They didn't have any jobs for a long time. And that's something that I think we face together. And I think that we have to be in control of that narrative. And we have to tell a compelling story. We are our best advocates. There is no doubt about it. When I think about the stories that I've been reading online, when I think about even the stories that I heard in the breakout sessions, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can see people's faces. It's like, I think now is our time to it's okay for us to beat our chest. It's okay for us to be proud about the light and the love that our art form shares with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students across the country. We know the Chorus America data that suggests that there are millions of people singing, and y'all are the people that are facilitating that. Y'all are the servant leaders who are making that happen day in and day out. So being willing to use your capital, your social media capital, to share those compelling stories. If a student sends you an email, and in that email you see, oh my goodness, I was just online and I saw a video of us singing together and it brought me so much joy. For you to be willing to tell somebody about that, to put that online. And if you're a choir director and you're a friend with them and it happens to come across your feed, for you to at least be willing, even if you don't share it on your own platform, for you to at least be willing to interact with it. There is capital in social media that we can use to help boost the algorithm scores of all of these posts that can help paint a compelling story of active choral music making, even in the time of the coronavirus. And I think that all of us have to join forces and be willing to write letters to people, to take the extra step of sharing the joy that you have. Like, all the people in my breakout room alone, and I would love to see if you can show hands, everybody in my breakout room was positive. I didn't feel like anybody was defeated. I felt like everybody in my room was like, this is what we got going. People have their eyes on the prize. People are looking forward. We're working through this together. And that's something that I hope that we can continue to do. I am interested in hearing more. So I'm going to share my last slide. Here we go. And questions. I have a lot of questions. And so I want to know the first question for you. How many of you would be willing to start organizing something like this in your local school district? Because I think that's an action point. That's a starting point that we can do, is basically contact our choir directors. The first step, contact choir directors who are in our area, who are not a part of this Zoom meeting, and say, hey, let's do exactly this thing with no real agenda other than to learn from each other and work through this together. I think that's something actionable we can take away from this. And I think something else we can do is be willing and nimble to experiment with different technologies. Yes, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Keith that said it was like 100. Did you say it was 100 hours, Keith?
Yes.
It was 100 hours for them to create this perfectly cultivated virtual choir experience. But maybe you can just, do something that's quick and dirty and is not as clean, but they get to at least hear themselves singing together. That only took 4 hours. And to think about being nimble in that way, to say perfection is not the point here. It's just to be able to connect with them and say, listen, this is the best that we're doing, but we're singing together still. You still get an idea of what's happening and what you can be a part of and what you should be a part of in the post-coronavirus era. And the last actionable thing I would love for you to do, just stay positive, y'all. We are facing unprecedented times, and we're looking at, being real. This is some tough shit. And look, it's, as somebody who is extremely privileged, I was quarantined in my basement for 14 days because I was experiencing symptoms, and they couldn't test me, and I got better after a while, and I don't know what was wrong with me. But I say that from a position of extreme privilege. There are people out there who are experiencing symptoms who can't be tested, who don't have anywhere to go, where they can't quarantine in their basement and isolate themselves from others. And they might be in your choir. And so being that positive light and being full of grace, full of love, full of flexibility, I think is something that we can really bring to the table moving forward. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I just wanted to share those three things with you and let you know that I'm holding all of y'all up in my thoughts, in my heart, and I hope that we can have more of these across the country, and we can have a massive one. All 50 states participating at once. I don't know who the hell is going to facilitate that. That's going to be pretty incredible. But I would be game to be a part of it. I would love to figure out what does that look like to get all 50 states collaborating on one big Zoom session.
I'm reading, Tesfa, the chats that people are sending you and me. And again, apologies. I just was very nervous about everything I was reading about, even Zoom bombers putting all kinds of offensive material in the chats. So I will figure out how to make the chats public after this when we post this recording online afterwards, because nobody sent anything obscene, thankfully. But I'm amazed that about 10 or 15 of you have written Tesfa and me privately and said, we're already doing some of the community sings. Somebody posted that their neighborhood is doing a weekly community sing at social distance, where people just come out into the street and sing together, which just, I got a little weepy reading that. And a bunch of you are sharing that your school districts and your band directors and you are putting together some things. And it's really, truly amazing. I want to say thank you, Tesfa, for leading this conversation today. We really are so appreciative. I think we, of course, as California Choral Directors Association, wanted to put this together, but I'm noticing friends from at least I'm noticing 10 or 15 different states represented here beyond California, which really warms my heart. And you are all welcome to spread the word. For the next 8 weeks, we're going to be doing this. And next week is going to be a panel discussion with 5 amazing choral conductors and just some of the ideas. We wanted to kick off with Tesfa and the big picture of how we're going to move ahead with virtual learning as music educators and conductors first and foremost. But next week will be more focused on virtual choir itself, if you will, whatever that means. And that probably means doing some things that are not virtual, but just distance learning. And then the week after that, we've got a panel discussion we're going to move away from just virtual things and talk about just professional development topics that you all care about. So I've got some wonderful composers lined up. Andrea Ramsey has agreed to be with us, and David Montoya and Zenaida Robles and Ron Keene have all agreed to be a panel discussion about commissioning new works and the composition process and working with choir directors. So we're putting together a great series for you, and we're just so grateful to Tesfa for being an amazing first webinar. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy to kick it with you down here in my basement. I was hoping that a cat would interrupt, but that did not happen. And I will spare you my Beethoven dancing routine unless you're really.
I think we should go out with your Beethoven dancing routine, Tesfa. Come on.
You're serious right now?
Yes, please. Look, all of these people are saying yes. Look at all these.
All right. I'm putting it on. Here we go. YouTube, Beethoven choral fantasy. This is gonna happen right now. It's a 3-minute clip, but only if everybody else gets up and joins in. It's a dance party to get us out. But do you want Julie to, just to want to make sure before we get out of here, I want to make sure that there's all the stakeholders have said anything. Julie.
Julie's gonna wait. Julie's gonna talk to us next week, I think, maybe.
Next week? Okay, awesome. All right, so everybody stand up. This is a way you can incorporate technology into your Zoom without doing virtual choir. So we were doing the choral fantasy. And the key is if you have an Apple Watch, you want your heart rate to get up to at least $120, 120. So I told the chapel choir that my goal was to get my heart rate up to 140. So I was really moving. So here we go. I'm going to share the video and the audio. This is Beethoven Choral Fantasy, the final 3 minutes. All right, so that's our dance party. But look, I can't tell you how many times I got emails after that saying, thank you so much for allowing us to just be silly. People in the St. Olaf Chapel Choir had a blast dancing to Beethoven yesterday. So creating experiences that are outside of the box that might not be as silly as dancing in your room to Beethoven, but doing stuff that just bring joy and community. That's something that I would say I hope we can do a lot more of. So thank you, everybody. Sending love to everybody.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.